The UConn Huskies back in Hartford this afternoon, going to take on the Houston Cougars right here on SNY. Coming up top of the hour, looking to begin a brand new winning streak after that loss to Baylor on Thursday night. As we welcome you, the UConn women's basketball pregame show. Gary Apple back alongside Carol Walters, #1 team in the land. Did something a couple of nights ago they haven't done in 6 years. 6 years ago was the last time they lost a game at home. So, Carol, what did we learn about UConn in that game?
Well, you can't have 6 points in a fourth quarter and win a game. I think that's what we learned about UConn. But so many different things. I think this team is just flat out not ready at this point in the season to win a big game like that. They're just not ready. They hung well, actually, in the beginning, but that fourth quarter, you can't let that happen. You just totally lost all control of the game. They couldn't hit shots. I mean, you'd have to say it was just a bad shooting night, but give credit to Baylor as well. They played fantastic defense, and we didn't see leaders emerge. And I think that's what happened in the fourth quarter. You didn't see someone kind of get in someone's face and say, hey, how are we going to get this done? You didn't see a leader emerge in the tough times, and that says a lot about the maturity of this team, or lack thereof. So I think there were a lot of things going on with the team, so not just on the court as far as X's and O's, but figuring out their identity and their leader.
What about offensively? I thought they looked way out of whack offensively. They weren't running their normal offense, right? Too much one-on-one, too much individual play. How do you get out of that and get past that?
You have Olivia Nelson-Ododa stay in a game.
Yeah.
I think that might help, right? Olivia Nelson-Ododa, from the get-go, she didn't play well. Lauren Cox was just a beast in there defending her, and she just seemed to shy away. She didn't step up to the test. I mean, this is a girl who had come early on in the season, and you saw a lot of changes in her. You saw her take a step back. Offensively, makes a huge difference with UConn's offense. They couldn't get the cuts they got. Early on, they got a lot of back doors because Baylor overplayed and denied. Once they clogged up the middle and took that away, they didn't have a post presence, and they couldn't get those backdoor cuts. They were stagnant. A lot of things have to happen, but offense needs to oftentimes work through the post, and that just couldn't happen.
Olivia played 23 minutes in the game and did not play in that fourth quarter. Again, UConn's loss stopped them from tying the longest home winning streak in Division I history. We get a look at the list presented by Town Fair Tire. UConn holds that record as well. Stanford, the only school not named UConn with a streak that even comes close. The Hall of Fame head coach Gino Auriemma reacted to the loss after the game on Thursday.
At this time of the year, you have to treat every game, especially a game like this against a really, really good team, you have to treat it like it's a, like it's another part of your class. It's a class, and this is one of the tests you have to take. And there's one every month. And what would be devastating would be if this was the final, and now we're done. That would be a way to go out if this was the final, but it's not. It's not.
What it really is, in many ways, is a midterm as we go up to Hartford right now. Welcome in Maria Marino. And Maria, what does the club hope to learn from that loss to Baylor and take forward beginning today?
Well, Gary, for me, the answer to that is twofold. On one hand, you have the technical aspect where, particularly for the front court players, they need to get better at executing their skills. They need to be stronger using their bodies on both ends, finishing at the rim, being more confident in their shot selection. Those are all things that can be worked on at practice. But then on the other hand, there's an experience factor, and that just comes with performing in these high-pressure moments, maintaining confidence even if your shots don't fall. These are things that are less tangible, right? You have to learn how to stay composed and to maintain that high level of play no matter what's happening. Now, the good news is that they're going to have a few more opportunities to experience these types of games, especially with the likes of Tennessee and Oregon and South Carolina on the schedule up ahead. And I think that's the only way that they can learn that.
I would agree with you on that, Maria. They've got to get used to playing in big games. We thank you. See you on the broadcast coming up just a little bit. One of the things I thought was interesting, Kristen Williams saying that they're going to take out their frustration on Houston today. Her words were a little bit stronger than that. But listen, I go back to the second quarter of Thursday's game. Kristen, defensively, she had a strong offensive game. But, man, Taya Cooper went right by her defensively. And this concerned me a little bit. What was your take on this?
Well, it was almost like she just gave up. It's what Gino used to call matador defense. You just let her go. And she didn't move her feet. They have some problems keeping people in front of them defensively, but that was just kind of, she gave up on the play. She made that matador defense.
Yeah.
She says, Olay, just go by me. And that's just not Connecticut basketball that Gino Auriemma is looking for. The attention to detail, the like getting gritty on the defensive end. So that's just not the way you need to do it to get it done.
And you saw Gino, they called a timeout immediately. You saw Gino on the bench sort of pleading to Kristen that sort of a situation like, hey, what was that?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing can happen. I wonder at this point, we've spoken about this over the years many times, as great a run as UConn has been on, I think 12 consecutive Final Fours. Can a loss like this be good for them moving forward?
Yes. I mean, and Gino said his whole way of looking at the season is it's not going to be pretty, but you have to be gritty, right? And so that was an example with Kristen Williams where it wasn't gritty. So I think they learned from this that even though they don't have the talent, even though, how many times have I said it, they don't have the person that puts on the cape and saves the day for UConn, you can still get it done. If offensively you stick to the plan, you listen to your coaches, you buy into the culture of doing the little things, you can still win a national championship. And they played with them early on, right? And they just missed a lot of shots. They make those shots, maybe it's a different game at the end. So you learned that, well, there's not a true leader that steps up, but if they play together, they can get it done.
Oh, they can. They can win the national championship. Let's not forget, they were down by just a point with under 7 minutes to go in the game. And
that's a bold statement by you.
Right. Well, listen, there's no great team out there. I think that's very clear. They're as good as the South Carolinas and the Baylors. There's no question in my mind about that.
And Kim Mulkey even said after the game, she said, there's 6 teams that I really see could be in the Final Four. She said, I won't name all of them, but UConn and Baylor are 2 of them. So they still get the respect, even though Gino said after the game, I'll quote, what a bunch of dopes putting us in the top of the AP poll. We had no right being there. So even though he gets sarcastic and stuff, they can still get to that point. Everybody relax. They can still get to that point.
I would agree with that. So we're just getting going here on the UConn women's basketball pregame show. Kristen Williams, she's getting set to go against Houston. She had 21 in the defeat against Baylor on Thursday night. And when we come back, I want to take a trip into Kara's corner for a closer look at what went wrong in that fourth quarter, specifically against the Lady Bears, and how a rematch could lead to a very different outcome. We're back from Studio 31 in just a moment. So the UConn Huskies held their own against Baylor through the opening 3 quarters on Thursday, but the fourth quarter, that left a lot to be desired. And for more on what went wrong and how UConn can spin it forward, we take a trip now into Kara's corner. Kara.
Although UConn hung with Baylor in this game, the wheels really came off in the fourth quarter. Was it just bad shooting, or were there other things involved? We'll take a look. Early on in the game, UConn spacing the floor well. Screens are set. This is a good example of them using this screen, going right to the basket, backdoor cut. They have Baylor beat because they overplayed. They take advantage of that for the easy 2 from Kristen Williams. Now, another example. We'll stop it here. Good screen by Kyla Irwin. Even though she didn't have a good shooting night, she set some screens. Megan Walker takes advantage of it, knocks it down for the 3. So you had some good offense coming from UConn, and then it got a little stagnant. So what happens here with UConn's offense? Olivia Nelson-Nadota, not in the game in the fourth quarter. She was not playing well. They had to go to a small lineup, and here we go. They have good spacing, but the problem is they stay out. You don't have a lot of cutters, and you don't have that post presence. So there's a lot of dancing out here, and they can't create anything. You see them moving the ball. They're blocking up the middle because you have Lauren Cox in there for Baylor. They get a shot, but not a good one. Again, you see UConn, lot of dancing. A lot of dancing out top because they have that small lineup, spacing. They're leaving this wide open because they want those cutters, those backdoor opportunities. In the fourth quarter, they did not take advantage of that. They get clogged up. Kyla's trying to set the screens. There's nothing there. There's no backdoor opportunities. Megan Walker with the air ball with the shot clock violation. Then just a bad shooting night. Megan Walker, bad shot. Gets the air ball. Again, another ill-advised shot. Kyla Irwin not hitting anything. And then here it is. You have Megan Walker for the backdoor and the easy two. And that look all over this face shows you that backdoor cut about sums it up. That's the way UConn's night went. We'll see how they respond. We'll see what they do against Houston. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Carol, we shall see today. Plenty more to do here on our pregame show as we get a look as we head for break at Crystal Dangerfield warming up for today's contest with Houston. Her role in the development of UConn's team maturity when we come back in just a moment. Megan Walker getting set for today's game with the Houston Cougars. Walker looking for a more efficient outing than she had on Thursday. She was 5 of 20 from the field against Baylor. And for more on the Huskies, we send it out right now to Ellen Beswick and Meg Colmo. They've got the call today from Hartford. Guys.
All right, Gary, thanks. So the Baylor game on Thursday night, Megan. How did that game and the outcome change your thoughts of what this team could potentially accomplish this year?
You know, it didn't really change it that much. I'll be honest with you. I thought UConn could have easily gotten blown out by Baylor in this game. But when you think about it, it was a terrific basketball game. You and I were both there. Yeah. The first half, it was back and forth. It was a terrific women's basketball game. UConn played really well for 34 minutes, 36 minutes, really. So, you know what? To me, it just teaches these kids to just listen to your coaches, number one, but they had never been in that situation before. So I think if they continue to work, they should be fine.
Most encouraging thing you saw from the Huskies against Baylor was what?
I'd say their fight. You know, they competed with a team who on paper is much better. The experience was the key that Baylor, the defending national champion, they have that big game experience. That's what UConn didn't have, but now they have it, and now they're going to be a different team mentally going forward. And to me, in crunch time, obviously talent matters, but the game can often be won between the ears because you got to be smarter and you got to be tougher than your opponent.
Yeah, certainly a great night. I thought a great basketball game, and it will be interesting to see how the lessons learned from that propel this team forward, Gary.
All right, Alan and Meg, we thank you both. And Gino Auriemma has come out and said this team lacks a bit of maturity. Yeah. And when you hear that word, what do you take from that?
Well, experience, the way you respond to things. Now, they don't have an All-American like they have in the past, which everyone would look for, you know. And now it's kind of saying, there's no one to look to. We have to take it upon ourselves. And that is the maturity and the growth, the place they need to get. But like Megan said, I agree with her. They haven't been in these positions yet. Better now than in March, right? So they're getting used to, like, hey, we have nobody to do this. No Nafisa Collier, no Katie Lou Samuelson. We have to come together as a team and do it. And these are the kind of games that mature you because you realize, and like Megan said, in the beginning, they hung for a while. But what happens in crunch time? What happens at the end of the game when shots aren't falling? Making smarter decisions is a way that you become mature. Gino said, you know, why would they foul at the end of the game when we're down by 16? That's just not smart. So becoming a smarter player, becoming kind of player who can be a leader and realizing that, hey, even though we're not experienced, we're getting experience, and let's take it and put it towards the future. And if they're there in March, they've learned from this.
And I think they've got to get more balanced scoring because all of the points except 3 were scored by Megan Walker and Crystal Dangerfield and Kristen Williams. They need others to step up in big situations. I think it goes back to that word maturity. So Olivia Nelson-Adota, she was one of those who did not score on Thursday against Baylor. How can she get back on track and take the next step in her offensive progression? That more just ahead. Season premiere of the Gino Auriemma Show quickly approaching. You can catch it only here on SNY Thursday evening following our post-game broadcast. Here right now, a sneak peek.
You've been ranked #1 in the nation for a good part of the season.
Yeah.
As you're flinching.
By accident. I don't know that we've earned it. I think we've fallen into it. You know, so does that matter? I mean, I don't think it matters that you're number 1 or number 2 or number 5. I don't think any of the teams that are ranked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe are looking at Connecticut and going, oh my God, I don't know how you beat them like they have maybe in previous years. So we may be ranked the same, but it's not the same.
Is that what you say to your team? What do you tell your team about rankings?
I tell them all the time. I just told them today. I said, look, people can say whatever they want. You know, the fans, the media, anybody. People can vote and say, yeah, Connecticut, you're number 1. I said, we're not number 1 until I tell you guys we're number 1. And I'll tell you guys we're number 1 when I think we're number 1. When? Well, are we the best team in the country today? I don't think so. But I don't know who is. Like, if you ask me, well, who is? I would say, well, you know, maybe Oregon has the best players, top to bottom, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know, like, who's the best team? I don't know. And had I never, ever coached the number 1 team in the country, I would go, ooh, this is really cool. Yeah, I think we're the best team in the country. But we've been number 1 how many times in the last 25 years? Like, it seems like at least once a year we've been number 1 for like 20-some years. I know when we're number 1. I know.
I think Baylor might have something to say about that at the moment. And again, you can catch the season premiere of the Gino Auriemma Show coming up Thursday, immediately following our post-game show right here on SNY. If UConn's going to get back to the number 1 spot, and Gino knows, as he said right there, when that might be. He'll know when he sees it. They need Olivia Nelson-Ododa to play at a high level. She did not against Baylor. 0 for 8 from the field. She didn't score in the game. She had just 1 block. What does she need to do to get back on track and to take it to the level that she needs to be at for this team to be the best team in the country?
Well, Gary, I think we've talked a lot about getting stronger. I mean, just the mental part. Mentally, physically. I mean, once Lauren Cox, who's a dominant post player, obviously, for Baylor, started stopping her, she just kind of shriveled up and went away from pressure and contact. So we know that she needs to get stronger offensively. And then I'd like to see her, honestly, Gary, add a few moves to her repertoire. I mean, she kind of just does the fake, the spin move to the basket. I'd like to see a dominant drop step from her. She doesn't seem to be strong and have the confidence. I'd love to see a hook shot from her, which is not taught in the game these days, but I think she can add a little more to her moves, but she needs to get stronger mentally and physically.
What are you thinking? The old school Kara Walters, drop the shoulder, Kareem type sky hook shots?
You know, Gary, I think what's happening with post players is they're so intent on teaching them to come out, shoot threes, be versatile, but then they kind of lose, you know, the old school, teach them back to the basket post moves. And that we've gone away from that. And obviously being a center, hopefully it comes back around again. But back to the basket is a different game. So learning, not just shooting threes, great, we can spread the defense, but how about when we cut, pound it inside, making a good fake hook shot? That was what I made my living on, the hook shot.
And it really does add a complete another dimension to your team when you have that presence down in the low block. So we're closing in on game time at the XL Center in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. UConn 8-0 all-time against Houston. Kara, when we come back on what to watch for specifically early in today's game. We're back in a moment. Before we head for break, going to take a look at the upcoming UConn schedule. After today's showdown with Houston, the Houston Cougars, UConn hits the road, going to take on Memphis and Central Florida, and then it's back at home for games against Tulsa and a highly anticipated matchup with Tennessee. Back in a jiff. Check of the starting lineup for UConn. No change. Kyla Irwin back in there despite the fact she did not score against Baylor. Same thing for Olivia Nelson-Ododa. So what to look for, Kara, early in this game today? What are you going to be focusing on?
It has nothing to do with Houston, honestly, quite honestly. What it has to do with is UConn and the way they bounce back and they respond from this game, from the Baylor game. And I think Olivia Nelson-Ododa, this is going to show a little bit of her maturity. How is she going to bounce back personally after getting benched in the fourth quarter, not helping her team? Now she wants to help her team. So I think, like Kristen Williams says, she feels bad for Houston.
By the way, do you think Gino made a point by sitting Olivia for that entire fourth quarter? game might have been closer with her in there, but in the long run, might it pay dividends?
Sometimes you don't know with him if he's making a point or he's just like, I'm done with you, you can't help us. But hopefully, message was clear. We'll see what happens today.
All right, so Kara and I go to see you back at the half. Right now, enjoy UConn and Houston. All the action coming your way from downtown Hartford, Connecticut, right here on SNY. Enjoy. It is the UConn Women's Halftime Report. It's brought to you by our local Ford stores. Gary Apple back alongside Kara Walters. Heard the Hall of Fame head coach a moment ago. We liked, for the most part, what he saw in that first half, but 25-2 early on for UConn, and they just rolled from there.
Yeah, as advertised, right? We thought this is the way the UConn Huskies would come out. Fast start, trying to kind of get redemption from that Baylor game. Poor Houston, I have to say. But they came out strong. The thing was an energy, and Megan said it. There was a different energy about them, and a lot of people got involved with this game. They kept moving on offense where they didn't have those cuts, which I showed in Kara's corner, right? In this half, they were cutting to the basket. A lot of movement in that open lane, and you had some help from Olivia Nelson-Adota and Macarat. She got involved with 6 points, and that made a difference as well.
So they had 7 players score in that first half, which is a big departure from what they had against Baylor. They had 3 main players, and then Macarat hit 1 bucket in that game, but a very much a balanced scoring attack in that first half for UConn. So they lead it big at the half, 44-21. Still to come on the Ford Halftime Report. Going to take a deep dive into the first half numbers. Plus, we look ahead to the second half. Back in a moment. We get check right now. First half stats. They are presented by your local Ford stores. UConn shot it well, 53% in the first half and 15 assists on 18 made baskets, so they shared the basketball. When we come back in a moment, look ahead to the second half. Kara Walters rejoins in a moment. All right, Doctor and Maria, we thank you both. So in that first half, Crystal Dangerfield, we spoke about the need for somebody to step up and show leadership. And Crystal Dangerfield, 11 points, 5 of 6 shooting, 3 assists in that first half. I thought she, in many ways, was that person for UConn. Yeah,
she was kind of the facilitator, and she brought a lot of energy. We have to say, 15 assists on 18 field goals today so far. They only had 8 assists in the whole game against Baylor. So sharing the basketball well, and a big part of that is Crystal Dangerfield.
What do you think? They got the message from Gino, and maybe not just the message from Gino, but reacting to what happened on Thursday night.
I think they had a team meeting amongst themselves, and you saw they came out with a different energy, and they had a purpose coming out this game.
And really, Houston shell-shocked after that first quarter. They were down 25-2. So Kara and I go to see you back on the post-game show. Second half action from Hartford in a moment. All right, Alan, back to you and Meg just a little bit. We thank you so very much. UConn now 124-0 all-time against American Conference teams. They have never lost in the American Conference. That includes the postseason. Very different story in today's game than what we saw on Thursday night on a number of different fronts. What really jumped out at you?
Well, I feel like this team competed for 4 quarters today. That's what they did, as opposed to the Baylor game where clearly we know what happened in the 4th quarter. They competed the whole time, and they came out very aggressive. There was an energy about them that just was different, and you had kind of leaders emerge. Crystal Dangerfield did a terrific job today. Megan Walker, you see the core 4, but I think there was help from everyone, and it was a group effort, and I think they're realizing there's not that one person who can take over and go one-on-one, which they did against Baylor a little too much. Their offense was so much better. They moved. It wasn't as stagnant. There were a lot of cuts through the lane instead of just standing, and they had Olivia back. So they all around, there was a lot more happening.
22 assists for UConn on 34 made baskets in the game. We saw the basketball moving and flowing and people cutting in today's game.
Yeah, and that backdoor cut is just part of their offense. It's available so many times. And that's part about having chemistry and being a good teammate, knowing where to hit the player and lead them to the basket for that backdoor pass. But they have opportunities to do that often. Teams are overplaying them, denying them. They go backdoor, and that's theirs. But you also have that, like I said, a timing and a chemistry with teammates to hit you at the right spot. And you see that kind of happening organically, and you'll see it progress as the season goes on. But there's opportunities for backdoor cuts.
So we wondered who was going to step up for UConn. You've spoken about it so many times. Who's going to put the cape on? Who's going to be that super woman for UConn? And Megan Walker, we know she's their leading scorer. She had another strong game today. 22 points, 8 of 12 shooting. Not just that she scored, for UConn, but I thought she was awfully efficient in the way she played.
Yeah, I mean, I think she took it personally, clearly.
Yes.
I think all these young ladies took it personally. They were going to come out and do things different. I felt a little bad for Houston, but they did. Now, I guess the question is, Gary, like, do they need that one person to put on the cape, or is the core four really going to share the duties? Well, tonight it was Megan Walker. You know, they kind of share who's scoring and when. It's not how many, it's when. So I think they're sharing those opportunities. But Megan Walker, I love that she's developed her all-around game. We've talked about how she got in shape. She's running the floor. She's scoring from other areas. She plays big inside. She's rebounding the basketball. So today, she was the person that really stepped up for the team. But do they need one person every night, or are they going to learn how to do this collectively?
Well, they did share the ball, as we mentioned a moment ago, and they shot it very well, over 50% in today's win over Houston. I mean, they came charging out of the gate. They were up 25-2. 25-2 after the first quarter, and they go on to win by 40 today at the XL Center. We get a check right now. Full game stats presented by People's United Bank, and 54% is what they shot. Didn't shoot it all that well from downtown, but they own the glass in the game. They own the paint and getting out and running. They had 16 fast break points as they go to 13-1 on the season, and now 4-0 in the American Conference. So all UConn in Hartford today as we head back to the XL Center. Welcome back in, Alan and Meg. And guys, we spoke about Megan Walker a moment ago, but what about Crystal Dangerfield and the way she stepped up today? And one of the things that we speak about, Kara and I, is her ability not to just knock down threes, but to score off the bounce and create for herself. How unique does that make Crystal?
I was really impressed with Crystal's game today when she drove the paint. There was some size under the basket for the Houston Cougars, and she found ways to free herself up for shots. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I mean, she's got supreme athleticism, and it is a unique thing, Gary, because as a point guard, you think, okay, yeah, distribute. And we've talked about this year. Gino wants her to look for her shot first. And that's just the way she plays, and she's so good and quick, and that first step is so quick, so she can create her offense, and then she's good enough once the defense comes, takes some stuff away, then she distributes. And usually with point guards, it's the other way around. They found a way to, you know, what works for her and for this team, and when they maximize it, they're pretty tough to beat.
Meg. Sorry, Alan, I never asked you. I just realized I'm saying Meg all the time.
He doesn't take it personally.
I get it.
I don't mean to exclude you. I'm used to talking to Meg. So Meg and Alan, tell me, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, she had a bounce-back game. She had 13.7 rebounds. Is that all that's needed of her from UConn? Can she be that 13-point player, or is more needed? And if so, what does she need to do to get there?
Well, I mean, those are great questions, Kara. And I think it depends on the game, right? Like sometimes it may be a guard-dominated game, and sometimes her teammates are going to take more of the load offensively. But what she has to do is make the most of those minutes when she's in there. She has to be more aggressive offensively. And some of it, she's got to get stronger. Like, you know, she worked incredibly hard in the offseason, but she needs to continue to do so. I mean, I wish gaining weight was as easy for her as it is for me, but she needs to gain more weight and gain muscle weight, and the stronger she gets, the better she will be. But she also mentally needs to, you know, she needs to come out every game and have that aggressiveness and that mindset that she will not be denied, and that's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think one of the areas that we need to see growth from Olivia in going forward for this team to get where it wants to go in March and April is intensity. A full, focused intensity, not just in the games, but maybe in practice too, to take that next step in developing herself as a player.
And I thought it was on full display early in the second half. She scored a bucket, great drop step, and then up and under, got a bucket and a foul, and then a block, and then a bucket at the other end. When you look at that and what that does for her confidence, I mean, I think you could see a more confident player in that situation.
Yeah, and you know, it's a great point, Gary. And yes, I thought she played better today, certainly than Thursday, but it's not enough to do it today, right, Kara? I mean, we've heard Gino say this year after year after year. You got to do it game after game after game. You can't play great one day and marginally the next game and then not show up the game after that. You have to show up and play well every single game, and that's what the expectation is here.
Yeah,
and
well, the good part about today,
right? Every single practice.
I think the good part about today for Olivia was it stopped the trend, right? The SMU game was just okay. Then the Baylor game was really not good. It stopped the trend and got the curve going back the other way.
And Kara, to your point, she doesn't love to practice, so she, that's where everything gets done and where you get better. Yeah. So we'll see if that changes going forward.
All right, guys, we'll see you on Tuesday from Memphis. Alan, Meg, safe travels.
Thank you both. Take care.
Thanks. Practice. I think. Who was that?
Allen Iverson.
That never gets old. But what about the fact that not only did she get it done on the offensive end, but she had 3 blocks in the game, and I think that's where they need her. That's where she really changes the game.
Well, yeah, she changes her game because her teammates know that she's back there, and they're confident they can overcommit and they can play defense. I think in that Baylor game at one point, that clip we showed with Kristen Williams, she thought, oh, Olivia's behind me, isn't she? Nope, not there. So you get used to having a shot blocker back there. I think she could have made a difference if she had kept herself in the game in the fourth quarter, if Gino could have trusted her. But shot blocking is a huge part of her game because it develops that trust and opportunities for your teammates to overplay.
So again, UConn had 4 in double figures. One of them also Kristen Williams. She played much of the game, including in that fourth quarter when many of the starters were on the bench. She finished with 21, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. This is what we know about Kristen Williams. She is a scorer. She is, in the truest sense of the word, a scorer.
She is, but that's been her biggest adjustment at UConn, and Gino's tried to really kind of drill it home with her. We don't need you just to be a scorer. We need to teach you how to be a complete, well-rounded player. And I think you're seeing that progression with her, but it takes a while. When you come from high school where all you do is shoot, and then you're slowly have to it takes years to figure it out. And she's figuring out that she has to do other things. I think her defense needs to continue to improve, keeping people in front of her. But she's definitely developed from just a shooter, just a scorer, to more of an all-around game, penetrating, creating for other people, coming off screens. As funny as it sounds, Kyla Irwin sets a lot of screens. So even when UConn's offense is not kind of vibing and gelling, people are always setting screens. And you, as the offensive player, have to set up the screen, right? You know, if they could set the greatest screen in the world, but if you're not using it properly, you're getting nothing out of it. So that's something that you have to learn also. It sounds basic, right?
Right.
That you have to learn when you're just a shooter and a scorer, how to use those screens well.
Yeah, you've got to have hard cuts off screens,
you have to set them up. You have to go one way and then come off shoulder to shoulder the other way. I can't stand when people just pass each other. I'm like, no, go find a body and then use it. So all these little details are things you have to learn when you go to UConn and not just sitting outside and shooting.
I love when you get your dander up over the basics, the fundamentals.
I love teaching, and I love teaching my young girls.
Which you do awfully well. I heard you on the phone today. All right, we're just getting going here. People's United Bank postgame show. When we come back, go and hear more from the head coach, Gino Auriemma, his postgame address to the media. Plus, we'll hear from Megan Walker as well. She's going to be with Maria Marino. Plus, complete game highlights as UConn goes to 13-1 on the season. Back in a moment. Gary Apple back alongside Kara Walters. Here we go. Complete game highlights, UConn and Houston. UConn looking to bounce back after the defeat against Baylor on Thursday night. That's Crystal Dangerfield from downtown. Dangerfield on the defensive end, spotting Megan Walker for the finish.
They really found their teammates' transition points, which they didn't have against Baylor.
Walker getting into the lane right here and then kicking out to the open Kristen Williams. It was 16-0 Huskies early on. Final seconds of that first quarter. It's Walker working off the screen.
He gets that screen from Kyla Irwin, sees the opening, and takes it all the way.
25-2 UConn after the opening quarter. Olivia Nelson-Adota scoring. Later in the second, Anna Makarat would come off the bench. She put some solid moments into the game for UConn. Look at Nelson-Adota.
You like that. The mid-range jumper as a post player, you need that.
If she can do that, how does it change UConn?
It's huge because you leave that opening in the middle and then they have to respect it.
Dangerfield leaking out. She scores for UConn. She had 17 in the game, final seconds, first half. That's the mid-range jumper by Kristen Williams. UConn had the lead by 23 at the break. And then early second half, thought we saw some really nice things from Olivia Nelson-Adota.
Yeah, her footwork and her pace patience in the post. She takes her time, makes a strong dribble. I like the way she turns with the elbow a little bit and gets it done.
Well, drop step and then go to the left hand right there. She had 13, 5 of 8 from the field. Meanwhile, Walker really asserting herself.
I mean, she's been really aggressive on the boards and seeing openings and switching hands if she has to get to the bucket.
Knocks down the corner jump shot later in that third quarter. UConn up by 35 off the steal. It's Dangerfield to Molly Benton. Good extra pass right here.
24 points off turnovers. Their defense leads to offense. Never touches their ground. Gets to the bucket.
Walker led the way. She had 22. Didn't even play in that fourth quarter as UConn cruises 91-51. How about this stat? They have not lost back-to-back games now since all the way back during the 1993 season.
Yeah, that's when I got there. That's why.
You think there's a correlation?
That's an amazing stat.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yes, a short time ago, Maria Marino with Megan Walker.
Megan, what was the mindset going into this game, and how did you stick to it?
Just coming off of a game like Thursday night, it was important for us to come out strong and be aggressive. You know, we really wanted to make a statement and show how competitive we can be.
Offensively, how did you work to get everyone involved?
Coach mentioned us playing together more, you know, and sticking together, and I feel like it was a good example of that tonight.
Can you describe just the faith you have in this team to keep responding and to do what you need to do when it matters?
We're going to be challenged. I mean, we're going to be challenged all year, and everyone knows that. But as long as we stick together, you know, I have confidence in Crystal, Liv, Kristen, you know, everyone on our team because we're so talented. So.
Are there any things that you're taking away from this one, or just in general, that you want to improve on?
I would just say, you know, our offense, you know, sometimes, you know, we get kind of stagnant, and we got to fight through that.
All right, thanks, Megan. Congrats.
Thank you.
And listen, not to keep harping back to the Baylor game, but you talked about the offense, and it can be stagnant. We saw it in the fourth quarter of that game. Very different story in today's game.
Very different, and they made a concerted effort from the beginning of the game. You could tell they went over, they looked at some game film, and they said, guys, we're too, especially when we talked about in Kara's corner, we addressed it.
I like that corner.
The high post, they were just keeping 4 people there and dancing around. Today, you saw a cutter. The cutter went through, then the next cutter went through, so they never just stood and watched one person. They were constantly kind of weaving and using the lane, and you saw it. When they have good movement and they're not standing still, they trust that anyone you give the ball to is capable of scoring, so why not share the basketball? But speaking of sharing the basketball, they shared the basketball, 22 assists on 34 field goals for the day. Now, put that into perspective. Just 8 assists in the whole game against Baylor. So much improved sharing the basketball.
All right, and as we heard Megan say right there, they wanted to come out and make a statement today. They made a statement. They were up 16-0. Yeah. So the game was really over in that first quarter as they go on to get the win 91-51. Kara and I, we've got more to come here from Studio 31 in New York City. When we come back, going to hear more from Gino Auriemma as his team moves to 13-1 on the season, still unbeaten in the American Conference. They have never lost a game in the American Conference, and we're coming right back. Time now for the drive of the game. It's presented by Subaru. Crystal Dangerfield to Molly Bent. UConn out and running.
That's what they did today. Very different UConn team. In the Baylor game, didn't get fast break points. Tonight, they were able to get it up the floor quickly. Sharing
the basketball, it is the drive of the game that is presented by Subaru. All a big part of UConn's 91-51 win over the Houston Cougars. UConn now 9-0 all-time against Houston. Moments ago, the Hall of Famer Gino Auriemma, his postgame address to the media. He began with discussing the way UConn bounced back after the loss to Baylor on Thursday night.
Game defines who you are as an individual or as a team. You know? Because right after the Oklahoma game, you guys were ready to name Livia Naismith Award winner. One game doesn't define a player. One game doesn't define a team. So the Baylor game, Liv failed miserably. She knows it. She feels terrible about it, you know? So you have a choice. Like, what are you going to do after that? Start building yourself back up, you know? Start putting together some good performances, you know, little by little. And then let the next month kind of start to define who you are. And that our team, I think, the same way, you know, I think they were pretty embarrassed, you know, by what happened in that fourth quarter, you know, to be able to play 35 really good minutes You know, and when they watch the film and there's 4:50 left in the game and it's a 3-point game, to see that kind of deteriorate to what actually happened those last 4 minutes was just embarrassing. And they really took it to heart. And hopefully, build on it. I think my players are really, really smart. They were really intelligent today. They did a lot of really smart things. I'm really proud of their intelligence.
Obviously, the score wasn't really close for the majority of the game, or all of the game, but Evelyn did play the most she has for the whole season. Can you just talk about how her development is going so far, and where she's at right now?
So far it's been, there's pre-Christmas Evelyn and there's post-Christmas. So before Christmas, before she left for Christmas, she was in a really bad place. Meaning, she knew she wasn't doing anything that was going to get her on the court. And she got very discouraged about it. And her work ethic and her, approach to everything we did was, she was just going to be buried on the bench the entire season, and it'd be a wasted season for her. And, since she got back from Christmas, from the very first practice, there's been a difference in her. And, she and I talked when she got back, and I said, there's still plenty of time in this season for you to have an impact and for you to get something out of this. And, hopefully I can help her do that. But she's made the strides that we need her to make, and she knows how to play basketball, and she's a big body. I mean, she's a big kid, and we certainly need that. So hopefully there's something there. But I feel better about it than I did a month ago. Let's put it that way.
The offensive execution early on, Gino, very pleased with that. It just seemed like there was a good flow and rhythm out there.
Yeah, there was. The whole first quarter felt like we could do whatever we wanted. We have to keep getting better at what happens when we make a couple substitutions and the flow is interrupted, because it felt that way in the second quarter.
All right, so that's Gino Auriemma addressing the media a short time ago. One of the things he said right at the start of that, one game does not define a player or a season. And so a chance midway through the year to really start over, not about a third of the way through the year, really, if they're going to get to the national championship game, to really start to play at the level they want to play at. Is that fair? Take heart of what you're doing, take stock of what you're doing, and then move forward from there?
Of course, and this is the time of year you kind of get a gauge on where are we at this point. And we talked about, and I hate to keep going back to it, the Baylor game was kind of a good barometer. It's kind of see where you're at, and let's move on from there. It exposed things, right? It just really kind of exposed weaknesses that UConn has, and now we move forward from here. The one loss is not a big deal. It is actually helpful to kind of see where you're at, and there's plenty of the season left to figure it out, right? So there's just a lot of things with this team because there's not like superstars. I mean, clearly you have the core four, but there's different things that make this team unique as far as figuring out the chemistry, who can help here, who can help there. Like Gino said, he normally, right, we know, doesn't substitute a lot. But if he has to, how is that person going to fit into the rotation? So there's kind of more little details to figure out with this team. So slowly and hopefully surely, they'll get there.
I think it really sets up a compelling storyline.
Yeah.
This is not a great team. We know this is not a vintage UConn team. They lose a game at home. First time they've lost at home in 98 games.
Yeah.
And now where do they go? How do they try to take off and win another national championship? I think it really is very compelling as they move forward here. Again, a win today over Houston by 40 points. It's a very good team. There's no question about that. When we come back, take a look ahead to the Memphis game coming up on Tuesday night, plus sights and sounds of UConn's dominant victory over the Houston Cougars today. Kara and I, we're back in a moment. Look, right now, UConn's upcoming schedule. It's presented by Town Fair Tire. The Huskies gear up for back-to-back games on the road against Memphis and then Central Florida. Then it's a pair at home against Tulsa and Tennessee before resuming conference play once again against East Carolina. And you can catch the Huskies next game here on SNY. Coming up on Tuesday night against Memphis, Kara and I going to get you started for all the action, beginning with the UConn women's basketball pregame show at 7:30. Look forward to that one, Kara. So as they go into the Memphis game, I think they feel much better about themselves?
Yeah, I think they feel much better about themselves, but they have a long stretch coming up here, Gary. They have Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. How will they react and respond to that? We haven't seen that many cluster of games, and the thing with this team, you're trying to get them to put back-to-back games, back-to-back quarters. That consistency is what Gino's looking for, and they have a couple games in a row, and especially when you play a bad game as a player, you're excited to have another game really close, but I think that's the thing, is consistency in a short week.
Look forward to being back together with you, Kara, on Tuesday night. That's going to do it for us. Once again, UConn wins 91-51 over the Houston Cougars. On the way out the door, the sights and sounds of the Huskies' big victory today. Enjoy.